Hi everybody, this is Tor Storley and I am back with another video. In this video, we're going to take a look at a package that you can install via pip or some other way that is called EdgarTools. Now, EdgarTools make it very easy to retrieve company and financial data from Edgar, the Security and Exchange Commission's API or website, if you will. So in this video, I will show you how to retrieve financial statement information as well as ways you can retrieve company information. We'll look at how to take that data, turn it into a pandas data frame, and then clean it up and then place it into a DuckDB database. So before we get going, maybe I should show you where you can go and find out more information about this package. We'll go to their website and look at some of the information. So you want to navigate to this website. Here is some information about how you can set it up and use it. So this is how I install it, get started in 2 minutes. And also they have code snippets here you can use for your own research. One thing you're going to need to do is you need to set your identity, as you can see here. Let me make it one bigger here. You want to import from Edgar the package, but then you want to set the identity. Now, what I did was I created an email, but it's a dummy email. It still works, but I don't use my real email in this video. So be aware, you're not going to reach me by using that email. So as you can see, you want to set the identity, and therefore it will allow you to query the API. Now, there is a lot of information here, and I urge you to go and read up on your own time here. But as you can see, so there is overview, there is different concepts you can see here, references, etc. So make sure you take a look at these how-to guide and get a better idea. So that's the website that contains this API Python package. So in order to use it, I just typed in pip install EdgarTools. That was it. And installed it in my virtual environment. Let's bring up a positron Python notebook. Okay, so let me bring up my notebook. I also have set my environment to be this virtual environment where I have most of my packages installed. So one thing you're going to need to load is the pandas package. Now, keep in mind that the EdgarTools behind the scenes, it does a lot of work and it uses Panda behind the scenes. But if I want to use it in this notebook, I still import it in here, even though the EdgarTools might run and use their own version of this. Also, I'm going to need the NumPy library for some cleaning. And then I import the DuckDB database. And from Edgar, I import company, set identity, and multi-financials. And here you can see I'm setting my identity right there with a dummy email. This is not my actual email. There you have it. So this one works though. So you can see down here, it finishes okay. All right, you can put the ticker. You can also use some company identifier, which is a number. Let's see what that one looks like. So I'm going to actually retrieve the company right there. And then as you can see, it prints out from the documentation. Here is the CIK, this one. That's the number you could also have put in here. And here you can see a little bit about AbbVie and fiscal year ending December 31st, etc., etc. And if you scroll down a little bit here, you can see here's the address. There's the symbol, etc., etc., and even a phone number. So yeah, you can do that. I'm just going to get rid of this output. The Security and Exchange Commission's format is something called XBRL, and it's kind of tricky. And I created a video in the past about retrieving information from here. I feel this particular EdgarTools is cleaner in the way you can retrieve the data. So in the documentation, you can find most of these commands. You can set up a filing like this. And then you set up your company that you are retrieving from and get the filings. And there are different filings like 10Q, there's 10K. So 10Q is the quarterly filings and 10K is the annual reports, if you will. And here you simply say, I want the latest. So I'm getting the filing and this is an object. And in case you wanted to see what this is, now if I print this out now, you can see this is of type Edgar Entity Filings entity filing. So it's a specific object, if you will. It's not in the right format yet. Here, I can take this object and I get the text from it. And then I print the text. So let's do that. Hit enter. And as you can see, here it prints out the text in that latest 10Q filing. So you can see here is the Securities and Exchange Commission, Form 10Q. And as you can see, it starts writing out this, and it's nicely formatted here too, as you can see, but it cuts off because there's so much text. So one thing you can do is you can bring it into a text editor, or you can do like a scrollable element. So if you do a text editor, it will load it into a second tab here. And now, as you can see, now you can go through this and read up on this as you please. So that's one way. You can also create a scrollable thing, this one. And now you can see you have the scrollable element here on the side. So that's another method you can use. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this because there's a lot of text. I can start trying to retrieve financials for AbbVie. And one way you can do this is you can create like a multi-period financial. And the way that works is, let's say if I just don't want the latest for the latest year of 2024, I think in this case, but I might want to grab several annual reports from the past and build some kind of data set out of it. One way you can do that is you can set this head and then the number. So here I want to retrieve for the last 6 years, and I want to get the annual report, this form, and I'm going to use this function to get it. And this one I'll call filings. So I'm going to run this. I can say multi-financial extract filings. So this particular function here is going to extract each year's data and then put it together into this object right here. Then from there, I'm going to grab the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flow statement. So let's run that. So if you want to look at these types, we can print those out. And as you can see, there's an object called multi-financials, and then there's also a stitch statement. Now, I don't know what these things do, and I don't really care what they do as long as I can get the final result in the format that I can use. But anyways, I just wanted to show you that. You can print that out. So in order to get the multi-year income statement, you can just print out the income statement you just created above here. So let's do that and see what that will look like. So now you get it in a printed format. And as you can see here, it produces 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up through 2024 from 2019. And here you can see this is the income statement it produced. So that one now is in the XBRL format, so that's not really useful for us, except for just printing it out and looking at it. However, one thing we want to do is we want to convert it into a data frame. All right, so you can print out the balance sheet too. So when I do that, you can see 6 years of balance sheet information right here. Let me get rid of that too. And then cash flow statement, we can do the same thing like this. So what I want to do now is I want to create a list over the income statements column names, because I want to try to make this dynamic, because I hate hard coding, like what is the column names, and then you go and you get a 5 years, or you get 4 years, or 3 years, what have you. Then you got to go and figure it out again and change all that stuff. So for me to build these tables in DuckDB, I need to know what the columns are. So notice here, I'm grabbing the income statements, but I'm converting into a data frame. So that's what I call ISDF. Then I'm going to grab all the columns and make a list out of it. And then I'm going to print it out here. So let's just look at this. So right now, you can see these are the column names in a list. Okay, so those are the ones I want to use in my final table, with the exception of one. I don't want this concept one, but I want the rest of them. All right, so that's that one. And now what I can do, I can remove that concept one by simply loading this list, new list object, and then removing index 1 from it, pop 1, which is, this one is 1, label is 0, and concept is 1. So that's what I'm popping out of here. So let's run that. And as you can see now, when I print out this data frame, you can see I have label, and then I have the years, like you can see here. So that's my new data frame right here. Okay, one thing you're going to discover is that there is some issue with the balance sheet and the cash flow statements with the type it produces in the data frame. So that was the income statement. Now let's create the balance sheet. I used the balance sheet 2 data frame, like this. And as you can see, this is the balance sheet. I want to capture all the columns from the balance sheet. They look like this. You can see it's the same names, and not a big surprise. And then I want to remove that one column here too. and it looks like this. So this is now the balance sheet cleaned out in form of a data frame. Now, finally now then, well, let's create a statement of cash flow to data frame like this. Then let's grab all the columns and make a list out of them. And as you can see, same column names. It's the same column names, but I made 3 different objects because, I don't know, maybe you only want 2 years of balance sheet or 1 year of cash flow or something. So when you create these tables, it might not be that they're always the same with 6 years here. In this case, I use that, but I make it flexible enough by prefixing these column names with CF for cash flow, for example. So now what I want to do is I want to remove that one column again, the concept. Now only the label remains, as you can see. Now let's get rid of the output. All right, so now we're ready to create a DuckDB database. So here you can see it created that database. Okay, so now we got a connection to the database. So as you can see, I have this function that I tried to use that is kind of dynamic, because if you remember, here are the columns. And if I pass in 4 columns, for example, 4 years or 3 years or 2 years, I want this to automatically be converted into numerics and a specific data type, because some of this data might be empty and some of it might be just a string in there or what have you. I need to convert them into numerics for all those years. So what this function is doing, I'm passing in the data frame and the column list. And then because I'm passing in the column list that has that label in the first place, the new column list will have everything except for this concept, right? So this will be the 0 position, 1, 2, 3, and so forth. All right, so what I'm doing then is I say, make a copy, first of all, of this data frame that you're passing in. And then I'm setting numeric length of the columns, which is the length of whatever that data frame column list is. And then I loop it. So I start with a variable I, start at position 1, which is the first numeric column, meaning the year 2024, etc., because label is in the 0 position. And then up through the number of columns that I'm getting here. Then I'm adding it to this data frame here, and I'm basically using pandas, and I put this particular, whatever column you're on, convert into numeric. And if there's an error, as you can see here, you can use this coerce. And as you can see down here, when you do that, if there's a value that cannot be converted to a number, be replaced by not a number value. And then because if you use this, it won't stop you. So it will just continue to process without throwing the error. Then I'm creating a dictionary here where you're looping between the I through the range. It should be 1 here, and the number of columns. And then you simply load it in with this data type. So you have the column name and the data type, basically. And finally then, this you convert the data frame object in with whatever the type is. Okay? So the first column will be a string by definition. And then you return the data frame. All right, so that's how you load this. And here now I'm building the optimized income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. So let's see how that works. I'm going to load it, and I'm getting an error. All right, I think I need to run the code first, so that's what the problem was. All right, so now I ran the function. Let's try it one more time and see if it fixes it. Okay, so it loads that, and now we can print out the info for each column and see if all those string variables or the columns have been converted into float 64. So here you can see the output for each of these data frames. So as you can see, only the label is object, which in Python term is string, and all these numeric columns are now float, so that's a good sign. And here as well, there's the float. Now I'm using all 6 columns for it, but you could potentially have 4 here or for balance sheet and so forth. So that's why it's nice to have that dynamic function. And here, it looks good. All right, so here's the column names, and here is the data type now. Now, float 64 might be a lot, but okay, I'll go with that. I don't know if we need to do this, but you can clean your data frames, and as you can see here, you replace any empty string or none or non, and so you do with a numpy, not a number, the function here, and you can clean out your data frame. So let's run this function. So that prints that out. You can study this on your own a little bit if you need more information. Now this one is interesting. This one I'm building the table scripts that I'm going to generate in DuckDB. So actually you can see what the table script's going to look like. So I can print them out, etc. So let's load this function. And as you can see, I'm passing in the column list, the table name I'm going to be using, and the source table. And here you can see these are the argument, and it's the name of the source table to select from. The table name is going to be the name of the table I want to create in DuckDB. And then, of course, the list of column names will be coming from this calls. And then I'm returning the string that I'm going to execute. So here you can see I'm creating a list, and I use an F string. And here, these are the variable I'm passing in. And I'm going to convert this first one, which will be label. And any of the others, as you can see here, will be a double. Okay? And as call will be the string of the column that you're passing in. And then you're basically building your statement here, create table, and then the table name. And you're selecting, and then I have the new line character, and you join this. And from the source table you're passing in here. And it's going to return that query string. So let's first check the database and make sure there's no tables. Okay. And here you can see 0 rows, so there's no tables in that database right now. Now we're going to actually execute this. So let me uncheck this. And notice I'm using the clean version of the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flow statement. Then I print it out, and then I'm executing it here, the query that comes back from it. So let's run that and see what that does. It looks like I got an error. Again, it looks like I forgot to run this function. So let's run that and now try it again. Because as you can see from the error here, it says this one is not defined. So that means it hasn't been run yet. So let's run that now and try it again. And here you go. So here you can see the printout of the create table income statement and then dynamically creating the list from this data frame, this clean data frame here. And as you can see below here, you have the balance sheet and the cash flow statement. All right. So that takes care of that. Now this one you don't need. This is just from the past when I hard-coded this. So this one, as you can see, would have been a problem right here because there's a hard-coded value. So we don't want to use that. We want to make it as dynamic as we can. And here I'm just going to simply query back the first 5 records from each of these tables I just created. And then I'm going to view them in a data frame. And here is the income statement, as you can see, with the NaN, which is like null values. Here's the balance sheet coming back from DuckDB. And here is the cash flow statement coming back from DuckDB. Now, there's a lot more to this, the EdgarTools package, but now you have a starting point. And if you want to start building financial ratios, etc., you can either do it here in Pandas, or you can even write it in DuckDB with CTEs and things like that. That is the end of this script, and I hope you like this video. And if you do, give me a like and consider subscribing to my channel. That'd be fantastic. Now, have a great day, great night, wherever you happen to be in the world, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.